Kerry Robinson here again. I'm sitting with Hall of Fame manager Tony LaRussa. And a lot of people, I don't know, for whatever reason, think that we had a terrible relationship, when we were together. But I just want to dispel some of those rumors and then ask you some questions about, the book 3 Nights in August. It's just for my therapy, right? Mm-hmm. So the first question I had asked for you was, you pinch hit me for Mark McGwire and what turned out to be what would have been Mark's last plate appearance of his career. And I reported to your office in the spring of 2002. You remember that? Mm-hmm. And you told me that you should have hit and run with me.
That's right.
Okay. So I saw an interview you did with Bob Costas saying you should have hit and run with Mark. Now, did I interpret that the wrong way? Was it me you should have hit and run with, or was it Mark?
Either one, because Mark was the hitter and Schilling was the pitcher, and Mark and I were together with almost just a 1 year separation from '87 to 2001. And believe it or not, he's one of the best hit and run guys I was ever around because he could control the head of his bat and get the bat to the ball. In that particular case, because of his back, he was having trouble getting the ball up. And that's the reason I pinch hit for him, was that I didn't think he could catch up because his back was bothering him. But at the same point, if he'd have gone to the bat, I felt we had a chance if I'd have hit and run.
Okay.
But in your case, you laid down a beautiful bunt, and we got the winning run over to second base, and I think it was Renteria and Matheny both had a shot, and they didn't. But I like that hit and run play because for one of the things you look for with a guy that's not overly powerful. You were strong, but you could hit the ball up. You're a good high ball hitter. Well, that's where that pitch is going to be, and it's not like there isn't a place for the bunt. But I always thought the hit and run with a guy could handle the bat. If you hit a ball, a ground ball, in an infield, it's like a sacrifice. But if you hit the ball through, it's going to be a big inning.
Okay. Well, we had an incident back in Pittsburgh, 2002. Something about you thinking I was watching TV up in the clubhouse, and I remember you came up and we had a little argument. Now, I remember this incident vividly because it was the first time I feel like I stood up for myself to you. What do you remember about it, and what was your thought process at the time?
Where I was coming from was you have to explain it on two sides. The one side is you had a burning desire to play every day. And there wasn't anything about that I disrespected because that's what a player should do. I want to be in there, I want to be in there, I want to be in there. And you had a lot of confidence in yourself. And the problem was on our ball club, you were not going to be an everyday outfielder. We had 3 other guys that were playing. So that meant that to be on our team, you had to be ready to use your versatility, be ready to come off the bench, do a spot start here or there. And one of the things you learn that unless the guy who's coming off the bench has a really solid attitude about, hey, the guys that are playing, I'm going to pull for them. You've seen sometimes the guy wants to be there so much he just sits in the corner. He's not hoping to get hurt or do bad, but he wants to be in there.
Right.
Well, I was really concerned that your burning desire to play was going to interfere with you, showing the teammates that you were pulling for them and being ready whenever you were called upon. So I was very concerned about that. And then when you weren't in the dugout and I heard that you were back in the thing, I just say he's pouting, and so I jumped you.
Right, you did. My thought at the time was I was upstairs in the batting cage getting ready for the game because you had just that week earlier told me, hey, you're one of my type, pinch hitting guys. So I'm going to be saving you for later in the game. And I thought I was up there working on my stuff, and I tell people, well, I really haven't told people this story, but I felt like I was working in the cage. I took my jersey off because it was hot in the cage. It was a brand new stadium, and I took a break to sit next to Chad Blair, and Chad is taping the games as we're going along. And that's the only TV I was watching. I was watching our game, but I was basically resting because it was so hot in the cage. And so I went back in the cage, and that's when O'Kendall came up first. And then, he said that you needed me, so I was rushing to get ready. Then he came up and said, don't worry about it. He said, don't worry about it. And then, so I didn't worry about it. And then I guess after the inning was over, you came up, and that's where we had our little spat. And so it was just a miscommunication on my part. But I thought I was working hard at the time. And then, we had that, and you told me to go sit on the bench like a little kid, and that really pissed me off.
Well, it shouldn't have, because I had a policy that if it's the day you weren't going to start, then you get a lot of work before the game, and if you wanted to, afterwards. But during the game, if you could smell that, an inning away that you might be the guy, go down there. But to do a lot of work during the game, the problem is that you're never on the bench, or not on the bench enough. And the teammates, when they come off the field, they have to see the guys, the starters that aren't pitching that day, cheering, the guys that aren't playing. Come on, let's go get them. So, there was there's a point of philosophy there where I wanted the guys who weren't playing on the bench a lot. And I felt like in this case, I wasn't sure if you were pouting. I accused you of that. Or that if you were doing your work, that's work that needs to be done before the game.
Right.
The only time you should be in that clubhouse is right before, maybe an inning before you get ready to pinch hit.
Right. I thought you alluded to me wanting to play all the time and be an everyday guy, like a Juan Pierre. You said that. I thought I could be like a Jason Tyner, or I was even better than a Peter Bergeron or Scott Podsednik. Even though I didn't have the opportunity to show what I could do on an everyday basis with this team, do you think my skills related to some of those guys?
I believe that it starts with believing in yourself. So for somebody that thinks they can play, as opposed to a guy who doesn't have confidence, that guy's never going to have a chance.
Right.
So you had confidence. You had this burning desire to play. That's one thing. I would be in the office with the guys and say, look, I'll never get upset at Kerry because he wants more than what's here. In fact, I had a conversation or two with you, and I confirmed it with Walt. I said, look, I mean, if it doesn't hurt our club, if there's somebody comes in here and wants Kerry not to be a bench player for them,
right,
but wants to be a guy who gets a ton of at-bats, we won't stand in the way unless it really hurts us.
Right.
So that part of it should be cleared up. It's just that in our ball club, with the way you could run, you were very cool under pressure, hit the ball to all fields, and you could play 3 spots in the outfield.
Right.
That's a very useful tool over 162 games, especially in the National League. So, like I say, the one part is I knew you had this burning desire to play. It wasn't going to play for us. If we could make it happen, I'd rather not stand away your career. But if you were with us, there's certain things like we talked about the other day, guys like Eduardo Perez, Miguel Cairo, they knew that they were going to contribute, and they really cheered for their teammates. And there were times that I felt like, you were so disappointed that you needed to understand the situation and make better use of it.
Yeah, I didn't understand it at the time. I do now, being on the other end, being a scout. So in the book, it says that like you said, that you would trade me. You talked to Walt, you guys would trade me. It also says that you would want to face any team that does trade for me. Now, I don't remember you saying that, but if you did, it's literally telling your player that he's not good enough to play every day. And so why would you say something like that?
There were several things in that book. The guy's a really great writer, Buzz Bissinger. There were several comments that I think were kind of inflammatory. There's a couple about JD Drew that, taken out of context. I never disliked JD. I just felt like JD was going to allow himself to produce below his talent. In a couple of ways that was described, I flinched. The comment about you, that was not an accurate comment. I'd have to listen to the tape if I come out. I was just being sarcastic.
Yeah, okay.
But no, if somebody gave you a chance to play, you had my respect, and I would have pulled. You were a teammate. I'd have pulled for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I remember the conversation we had there at the complex in Jupiter. It was me and you. I remember you walking up to me, so I'm like, I don't remember that happening. But anyway, there was an example that Buzz gave that said I wasn't always mentally in the game. It talked about Dave McKay having to move me pitch by pitch in a particular bat. I remember I was in right field in Busch Stadium, and that had never happened before. And before that had happened in that particular at bat, so he had to move me from pitch to pitch. Do you remember that incident, or because that had never happened before and it never happened after? I feel like it was done just to portray me in a bad way in the book.
I don't remember that exactly. What I do remember is that I used to say I because you say we, it means that you're sharing the the comment that as a staff we evaluated, and I think the place that we always felt you concentrate was on the bases and taking at bats. But I think there were times that I felt just from watching you that maybe you were thinking about your hitting, or maybe you were thinking about your situation. I don't think that you were 100% locked in. One of our teammates, a guy named Jim Edmonds, to be a great defensive player like Jim was, you got to concentrate even harder every pitch all game than you do as a hitter. So I think there were times where I felt like you were drifting out there.
Okay, after all that happened in August of 2003, after the home run and all that, I show up to spring training 2004, and the first thing again you said to me was, okay, here's your chance to start. That's when we brought in Ray, and I was supposedly competing with Ray for that position out there in left field. Why would you say that to me after knowing that what you had said to Oquendo, the comment you made to Oquendo back after I hit the home run? Right. So I come back in 2004. You told me I had the opportunity, to start. Why would you tell me I had the opportunity to start when you told Oquendo back in 2003?
Yeah. No, that's easy. We're in the middle of competition. We're playing against whoever it was. This time it's against the Cubs.
Right.
And one thing that nobody's ever accused me of is not being having the urgency of the competition. I'll get into that competition. And the one thing you learn as a manager from the guys that taught me, the Sparkies and Dick Williams and these guys, Chuck Tanners, the game is won on execution. And if you remember, earlier in that game, the man on second base is nobody out, and I gave you a chance to swing.
Right.
And if you'd have fouled it off, then I was going to put the bunt on. So the first pitch, and the guy, he's got a great running fastball away, Kerry Wood, and you pop the ball down the left field line. And that really upset me, because that's the way I am during the game. I get upset. And so in a close game, that lack of execution. We just lost the game yesterday here in spring training before we taped this.
Right.
We didn't get the guy over from third base from second base to third 3 times. We lost the game by 1 run. Now I'm not the manager. I'm just upstairs as an advisor. And I was upset. So that one there was just emotion. I told Oquendo, when you didn't get the guy over, he says, if I ever start that guy again, I'm going to kiss your ass.
Okay, yeah.
And then you hit the home run, and he walks off the field, and I'm smiling and hugging you, and he says, hey, pucker up. I went, now next spring, now everything is, we're got back to zero.
Right.
We're starting a brand new year. And one thing that we did do every year is we created a competition in spring training, and we went with the guys that played the best. Now, if you were a first baseman and you were competing at first base, you had to have been really, really great to go by Albert.
Yeah.
But the fact was, in that one there, because Ray came back, and we weren't sure what he was going to be.
Right.
And we started everybody at zero, so that was apples and oranges. You were brand new, and what I told you was true.
Right.
But back then, that was emotionally just. And I've said something like that about other players before, including myself when I screwed up bringing a pitcher in.
I would say in my defense, sometimes I tell people the book was really unfair to me, because that situation you talked about, you have Carlos Zambrano's throwing sinkers 96 away from me.
Carlos,
so
okay.
Yeah, he's trying to do what he can to not let me move the runner over. And it was a spot start for me too. So if a fan that really doesn't know a whole lot about the game reads that, you got a Hall of Fame manager against a guy like myself, it really makes me look bad that it sounded like I never got the runner over. I never did the things that I was supposed to, when in reality, that was probably a tough at bat for me in one particular situation. And so that's why that part of the book really frustrated me.
Yeah, and I don't blame him for that. I apologize, because a really smart manager, knowing how Zambrano pitches, would have just bunted you.
Okay.
Be easier to bunt over than try to pull that heavy, hard sinker.
Okay.
But I do believe in that book, it was an effort, Buzz. He knows that you've got to create some. I mean, there was a chapter about where Tino Martinez got drilled, and we drilled Luis Gonzalez. Both went to the same high school, same one I went to.
Right.
So there was a certain amount of drama, and I really felt, in your case, to some extent less than JD's, that was portrayed with more disrespect and dislike than ever exists. I didn't disrespect you at all. I felt like JD could have got more of his talent, but I didn't dislike him. I never disliked you. So I think that he took the one thing where here's a bench player that's not accepting it and creates a problem. And I said, I think you could have been a bench player for a lot of years had you been more like Cairo and Perez. But that wasn't in your DNA. You wanted to be an everyday guy.
Well, in that particular situation, that was kind of like me just getting called up at the beginning of my career, and I feel like a lot of bench guys have had their opportunity to start and maybe proved that they weren't an everyday type guy, and then they were at the point in their career where they were happy to accept that, and that's just what I dealt with at the time. So
well, there's two things too. One is that, and there's another one we talked about. What was your first year that you came to spring training with a chance to make the club?
2001.
Okay. So the thing that we always noticed was, for a young guy, you had a lot of super cool in the major league situation. That's why you're right. Most times, young guys get so emotional that they can't handle a part-time role. You sit around, they think themselves in a problem, but you're a guy that really kept his mental confidence and your fundamentals together.
Right.
So really, you were exceptional for a young player to be able to execute in that situation. The other one we talked about, which I totally agree, when when you really believed you could play every day, was there's a big difference financially between an everyday outfielder and a part-time player.
That's right.
You're talking about over 4 or 5, 6 years. You're talking about millions of bucks.
Right. Well, next question. In Canseco's book, Juiced, he made reference to you playing mind games with younger players. And when I read that, I totally related to it, that experience. My question is, why do you do stuff like that? And you want me to give you an example? You used to say all the time, like, don't get comfortable. Like, I don't know what that means.
But then, know exactly what it means.
What does that mean?
Okay, first of all, Jose is 100% wrong. I don't play mind games. I pay attention to the mind, because in the time of our play, in this generation, players are so distracted by, well, it could have their agents or their family friends telling them to get yours, and you're playing a team sport. They could also have been raised to be thinking they're some kind of entitled athlete, not accountable, kind of arrogant. So I pay a lot of attention to the mind. But mind games means that I'm trying to deke you and fool you. I built my whole career and our coaching staff around respect and trust. I was always going to be honest. So, the perfect example, when I saw a comfortable player, he looked to me like a guy who's sitting back, wants to sit on the couch, put his feet up, watch TV, go out there. Hey, whatever happens, happens. You cannot win with comfort. You got to win with confidence. I wanted confident guys, but I wanted guys to feel urgency to perform that moment. And so I think it's very important. I'm glad you asked that question. Yeah. When I told you I wanted you, hey, don't get comfortable. I said that. Hey, I told that to Albert. I said, hey, you get confident, but don't be comfortable. Comfortable is not what we do when you're trying to compete against somebody else. And the other one is, I never tried to create a false impression, illusion. I didn't want to play mind games with guys, but I did pay attention to the mind, and I tried to honestly call guys out on it when I didn't think they were right.
Well, another example is we were in Fort Lauderdale. I was starting this day. I was in right field, and you walked up like you always do with your fungo, and you said to me, you look like you're pissed off. You're not leading off. And I did not understand what you were talking about, because I was just happy to be playing that day. As a guy that's just trying to get at bats in spring training and make an impression, I did not know what does that mean? That I look like I'm pissed off that I'm not starting or I'm not leading off that day. So what was your thoughts on that?
Two things. One could be that the coaches had seen you, maybe not. When you pay attention like we did to the persons, you get to see. There's Kerry Robinson walk in, and you can tell he's feeling good. And maybe he's bothered because something happened at home. Or maybe he's upset because he's not playing that day. I don't know where I came up with that, except maybe I got some impression that if you're going to play. I know that's not the kind of mind game. I wasn't trying to taunt you. I was told, you got to do something. You got to make sure Kerry's mind's right, or I had seen something that triggered that. I better challenge you on it, because I don't like to let things fester. Okay,
I remember because I was in a great mood, and you said that, and I'm like, that just totally put me in a different state.
Yeah, I'm going to get to you tell me, hey, talk about misreading. Either somebody told you the wrong thing, or you misread it, because I'm in a great mood, ready to play. That would have been a good response.
Right. Okay. Well, what is the timetable of the movie about the book? And do you still have a small part for me to be in it.
We tried it. It had some life for a while. That was 2000, and it came out in 2004. It was written about 2003, and here we are 6 years later. Now they tell me it takes sometimes 12, 15 years for a book.
Right.
I just think that that probably is never going to be a book that becomes a movie. There's no sex in it.
Yeah.
But it's a great, honest view of about two teams playing against each other in a 3-game series. In fact, the way that thing was supposed to be written, I was wanting to do it against like a guy like Jim Leland, who I knew, him against our club against his. That way he talks about how they prepared, we prepared,
right,
and then play the game. But Buzz is a bestseller because Buzz can really write. It's unfortunate a couple of places that I flinched, and one of them was about stuff that came out about you. But should have stressed more the fact that I understood totally about you wanting to play more.
Right. I feel like the book, it came back, and I think it came out in the spring of '05 or something like that. I didn't know about it. Eduardo Perez called me and told me about it. I think, and I could be totally misreading this situation too, is that it cost me a job with the New York Mets. And so that's why it really frustrated me, because everything was going great that spring. I was playing well. Then all of a sudden, they didn't send me to AAA. They just released me. And so that's why, another reason why it frustrated me.
If that's, it's possible that's a consequence that's unfair to you, and that hurts. That hurts me to be a part of that.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say about me, or tell a quick story or anything?
No, I think, as I said, you had a real confident coolness, and you were not intimidated by the bright lights of the big leagues, which you see a lot. You had versatile skills, and on our ball club, another club, if you'd come up with some other club that was, a second division club that was struggling, then your chances to start were different. But we had established guys, and
right,
and we put together. There's two things we did. We put together our bullpen and our bench with as much concern as we did our starters in pitching and players, because over 6 months you got to win a lot of extra games. So, but I just think that that role, because you were young, it was a tough role to accept. And I think, it's a wonderful story about you hitting a home run and me telling Jose about the butt kissing and
right,
him telling me to pucker up. I think that's a funny, great, true story.
I agree.
But it doesn't, there's some negatives about there that you didn't deserve.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me an opportunity back in 2001 when nobody was at that time. I signed back with the Cardinals just because of what you told me back in '97. I was one of those prospects that came in the pre-draft camp, and you said to me, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to help us win someday. And so that's why I signed back with the Cardinals. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to at least play 3 years for the St. Louis Cardinals, being a Cardinal kid. It was a dream come true. And then also, congratulations on the Hall of Fame.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, Kerry.
All right. That's Tony LaRussa, Hall of Fame manager.